All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat.
And I'm Eric.
And I'm Stan.
And today we get to jump into some very controversial waters. We're going to talk about the Cyberpunk 2077 launch and all the controversies surrounding that as of the date of recording this. So we'll jump into that here shortly. We're also going to give some Cyberpunk 2077 impressions. I've put a lot of time into the PC version, and then Stan was able to try out the optimal version of the game on the PlayStation 4, the base model in particular, right?
Mm-hmm. Indeed, yes.
So that's actually the second most powerful version, right next to the Xbox One base model version. That's really the preferred experience for this, if you really like just getting as low as possible with the frame rate.
He's joking, guys. If it's not obvious,
yeah, don't
downvote right now. Yeah, hear us out.
Well, I'm clicking off already.
Anyways, so that's what you can expect for Cyberpunk this episode, and then we're also going to talk about the 2020 Game Awards. God help us, that was a long show, and I think this might be a long episode, but we're going to try to get through it and be, we're going to try to make it interesting. So on the 2020 Game Awards, we'll talk about the RPG news from the show and then our general thoughts and impressions with the show overall. So jumping into the lovely place of controversy with Cyberpunk. You guys ready?
A lot to get to.
But let's do it anyways.
All right. So we're going to give you guys some background on basically what is going on with this game as of right now, so everyone listening can be up to date. So when we're talking about it, y'all can be on the same page, and that just makes it a little bit better for everyone, I think. So right now it's October, it's December 15th. And so we're going to talk about what has happened as of right now. I'm sure by the time this goes up, there might be an additional piece of information out there that will make people even more upset, or maybe it'll make people feel a little bit better, probably more upset, let's be honest. And so
probably like 5 minutes after this episode comes out.
And that's fine. Thank you, CD Projekt Red.
Mm-hmm.
So the good news, PC reviews, when this game launched on Metacritic, it was getting a 90 out of 100 among critic reviews. And the user score was right now about around a 7 out of 10. So, basically some people were having issues with the game, even on PC on day one at launch, but most of the critic reviews were very, very good for this game. In fact, IGN actually gave it a 9 out of 10 or a 90 and said they would actually give it an even higher rating if it wasn't for the bugs. And they actually lowered their score because of the bugs. So a 9 out of 10 is what the game got after lowering the score because of the bugs. So it has reviewed very well. Despite that, even some of the lower reviews, I think GameSpot gave it a 7 out of 10. And they said, look, it's a great game. It's just buggy. So some of the things that people are bringing up as just fantastic is the engaging story. The side quests are very Witcher 3 in their immersion. They're very well created and produced. The characters are described as being memorable, great graphics, music. The combat is surprisingly good. People didn't expect that, from CD Projekt Red, who's more experienced with these more Western, like medieval type games with swords and bows and arrows. To do gunplay well was surprising to a lot of people. So people have really been praising that. But like I said, the game had lots and lots of bugs on PC and the game was crashing. So that's not good, right? And so since then, the game has actually received 4 major updates, and total being over 140 gigabytes in size, which is actually bigger than the game itself, the amount of patches it's received within the first 4 days. And IGN released a statement saying it's a new game after the patches. And these patches also went to the console version as well, but people are still reporting lots and lots of issues with the game. Despite these patches, even on PC, some people are still experiencing more minor bugs on PC now at this point, but console's still pretty rough, even with those patches. I've personally put 25 hours into the game on PC. I haven't had a single bug. but that's not the same for everyone.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, after tonight, I might just go on and be like, it crashed, and I have to like start over. But
I guess it highly depends on the kind of specs you use compared to other people. Like one person may be using like standard 1080p and
yeah,
it's running fine for them on a high setting. And then maybe someone's struggling with an ultra setting 4K and the bugs appear a lot more on there.
yeah,
So I would imagine that everyone's play experience is probably going to vary based on the
their
kind of
setup.
PC they have and the specs they
Yeah,
put into the
Yeah.
game.
I could see like performance being changed drastically with that. Obviously, what you have is going to really impact whether the game's going to crash or not. I would imagine probably as well. Um, but it's kind of weird if that impacts bugs, but I guess that could too. Maybe it's kind of trying to adapt to whatever you have. But anyways, so that's the PC version. Interesting note about the PC version: the game has sold 8 million total copies across. This is interesting note across PC and console. It's sold 8 million total copies on day one across consoles and PC. This is mainly due to the pre-orders. So the PC launch in particular broke a record for PC games with 4.72 million copies sold from pre-orders alone. Pre-orders for CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk, I keep getting those interchanged, Cyberpunk actually was 60% of the pre-orders were PC. So that's amazing to me when I saw that. That was really surprising. So the console review, this is the good stuff, guys. This is the fun stuff. Okay, so the game is currently sitting with a 5 out of 10 from critics, not users, critics. So this is, journalist websites are reviewing it, and the average score, the aggregate score, is a 5 out of 10, which is awful.
Ouch.
That's not good. And the average user score is a 3 out of 10. Now, if you look at what was reviewed for the PC version, that's not necessarily saying it's a bad game. It's just been marked. Most of the critics are saying that it's just almost unplayable unless you just really just want to stick with it. It's got so many issues that it's difficult to play. So some of the reasons why people are mad, despite the fact that, because I said it wouldn't play, is that back in November of basically last month, CD Projekt Red's CEO said on an investor call that Cyberpunk's 2077 performance on the base PS4 and Xbox One consoles was surprisingly good. He would say for such a huge world. The CEO clarified that although the performance on these base consoles is lower than their Pro counterparts, meaning the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, it's still surprisingly good. So this surprisingly good, people don't like that because when the game's crashing or the game doesn't work, or in some cases you have to reload your save file because you can't beat the game with your new save file, that doesn't seem surprisingly good, right? That seems surprisingly bad.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
does seem a little disingenuous. Almost just straight out, possibly just straight out lying, depending on
Well,
the way you said it. Because
yeah,
like you're basically telling people that this game runs really great on current gen consoles, and
Mhm.
then I go out and buy like the PS4 version, and it's unplayable. And I remember he told shareholders that this is supposed to run surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Now,
well,
if I was in that situation, I would feel like I was like,
yeah. And that's a fair assessment. I think that some people have pointed out, and I kind of see where this is coming from, is that they spent 15 months trying to get it to run on a console. And so I think the fact that it ran and passed certification and that they had 160 gigabytes planned in patches, they just thought like, okay, like it's like, wow, we pulled it off. But unfortunately, as we'll see, they underestimated. So
I have a funny feeling this game is not made for current consoles.
yeah, I think it's like
Yeah.
probably like, the 3DS maybe. I don't know. Well, the game was announced in 2012, so it should be made for the PS3 version, right? That's because that's when it was. No. Anyways, so
Could be worse. They do.
yeah. Anyways, however, so users read PC reviews that described a great experience, but CD Projekt Red did not let journalists get the console version early like they did for the PC version. So the only reviews out there on day one was for the PC version, which was getting like 9s out of 10s, some places 10 out of 10s. So people went and bought the console version thinking, this is going to be comparable, and it just wasn't. So on console day one, we're talking like just really just game-breaking bugs. A lot of quests would not fully load. If you did quests in a certain order, you wouldn't be able to finish the game, and you had to reload different saves. A lot of times the games would just crash. Frame rates with some of the base model consoles were dipping as low as like 12 or 13 in some cases in certain areas, which is really low. I mean, they were targeting 30 frames per second, which is already low for 2020. I mean, most people are looking at 60 FPS. So, I mean, I do on PC for a while I was running it at 100 FPS. So when I see the game hitting 12, I'm like 12. Like that's ridiculous.
It's unacceptable. Yeah.
that's like 10% of what I've got. That's insane. So anyways, so that's the base model. They've also made serious compromises, which is something people have been pointing out with the console versions, meaning they've reduced the amount of NPCs out in the open world, the amount of cars. They've done, the amount of enemies attacking. They've done like serious graphical downplays with what's being presented in the world and really toned things back. So the Xbox One version hits 600p, so not even full 720p. So not even full HD. Geez, it's bad. PS4 base model 720p. That's the Nintendo Switch resolution. PS4 Pro hits between 900 and 1180p. So it's as you can see, we're getting a little bit better. One X actually hits up to 1400p, but Digital Foundry, the YouTube channel that is just known for doing super in-depth comparisons, actually pointed out that because the Xbox One X is running at a higher graphical fidelity, it actually performance-wise runs a little bit worse than the PS4 Pro. It's kind of interesting. So that's kind of an interesting tidbit. And the next gen versions, you can buy the game and play it on next gen, but the game has not actually been released for PS5 or Xbox Series X. So if you play the game on a PS5 or Series X, it's just playing the PS4 or Xbox One version on the next gen console. So it's playing it in backwards compatibility mode. So it runs it at 60 FPS, which is nice, but it doesn't have any of the graphic enhancements. It's not like a special version. It's literally just the same game. It looks a little bit sharper and it runs at a higher frame rate.
Do you know if it like stays at a constant 60 like in cities and such? Okay, so it is ultimately better to run it on the next gen console.
But it is better, but you're still dealing with those downgrades, right, compared to the PC version, like fewer NPCs and things like that so can't really be patched in for just PS5. You have to wait for the PS5
version
upgrade coming. Who knows?
Well, the cool thing I did hear is that didn't they also say there's going to be a free upgrade?
It's a free upgrade, which is not something everyone's doing. Anyways, well, let's keep going. We're almost done with the crap show here, and then we'll freeform this. So that's basically where it's at with the consoles. There's also, like we talked about, the frame rate, and there's all sorts of comparison videos online. And like we said, there's been 4 patches for the console version. People are pointing out that with these 4 patches, the game is much better than it was, but it's still not good. No one would recommend it on PS4 or Xbox One. And Walmart is actually in certain places requiring the cashier to warn people when they're buying the Xbox One version, because they've been getting so many returns that like, hey, like this is having problems because of the amount of returns they're getting. So there has been a lot of refunds, and CD Projekt Red has responded recently, and they basically apologized. They said, we would like to start by apologizing to you for not showing the game on base last-gen consoles before it premiered, and in consequence, not allowing you to make a more informed decision about your purchase. We should have paid more attention to making it play better on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And they also promised 2 large patches. I think technically they promised 3. So there's one that's supposed to be coming next week, and then there's going to be another one in January, and then another one in February. And this is going to supposedly fix a lot of the issues that we're seeing on console. They put a little asterisk that it's also going to be helping issues with PC as well. And they said if you are unable to get a refund and you don't want to wait for these patches, but you still want a refund and you can't get it, they gave an email address and said, contact us till between now and December 21st, and we'll reach out on your behalf and get you a refund. And so they are getting some kind of positive press about that, but still people are upset. And the only other component to this, and then we'll jump into it, is there was a recent IGN article that came out today where high upper management CD Projekt Red was addressing investors, and the investors were asking them questions, and basically things such as, why didn't you just delay the game again? Could you have just, done a PC release and put the console version out later? And basically what they said was just very plain. They said, we focused on the PC version. We underestimated what the console version was going to require. And they're not shying away from putting the blame on themselves.
They screwed up. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, they're just acknowledging we screwed up, but we're going to fix it. So that's where it's at right now. If you want to buy the game, we'll get into impressions later in the podcast, but just if you're listening thus far, if you're going to buy it, probably look at the PC version or perhaps a next gen console version. Although I still see people saying on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, the game still crashes, will still crash. So that's not good, but it does run really well on those consoles. So at least you won't have the performance dips besides crashing, which is quite the performance dip. But, but anyways, so that's where we're at with this. And let's just jump into the main crux of this argument that people are most upset about, right? So people are basically saying that, hey, CD Projekt Red clearly knew that Cyberpunk 2077 was not up to par on console. And so they did not let journalists play the game on console before day one, but they only sent out review codes for PC versions, and it was misleading. And that is basically why people are pissed off. I don't think people would be as pissed off if they sent out PS4 codes and IGN told everyone 2 days beforehand that it's a terrible version.
Also, I believe that you weren't allowed to show your game footage until a certain date. And you were only allowed to use footage that was already provided by CD Projekt Red until a certain date. You weren't restricted necessarily, but they said you couldn't use your footage. So a lot of people actually held off on their review until that date, and then they uploaded. So I guess it was like a soft way of CD Projekt Red getting people to release their review at a particular time they prefer, without saying just strictly you are not allowed to release this until this date or something like that.
Right.
Which is a little shady in itself too.
Yeah. I agree. In my opinion, that's the biggest screw up of this whole situation is the fact that no review codes for the console version went out to any, YouTubers or review outlets or anything, so that when the game came out, the only reviews available were the PC version, and CD Projekt Red has a good track record with their console ports. They just, a year ago released The Witcher 3 on Switch, and it's very playable and looks pretty good, considering the hardware. Yeah. So people were expecting a competent console release for the game, and they didn't get it, and there was no reviews out there to warn them. So most people just kept their pre-order, they didn't cancel or anything because they were seeing all the good PC reviews coming in, and they're like, well, console won't be too far off from that, and that was not the case. And I think CD Projekt Red, they had to have known, like they had to have known the state the console version was in,
Well,
and
go ahead.
Man, let's see them put this on the Switch.
Well, that's the thing. People have actually been showing side-by-side comparisons of the Outer Worlds on PS4 and then Switch, and then showing right next to it a comparison of Cyberpunk 2077 on PC and then Xbox One. And it's like the amount of difference in graphical fidelity is very similar. Like it's crazy. Yeah. But I agree with you guys that like I think this is the crux of the problem, and that what they did was not good. Like that like what they did is worth criticism. They shouldn't have done it, and they're deserving a lot of the pushback that they're having right now. I do think some of it is starting to get a little absurd. However, I do think that this is flames that CD Projekt Red created. Like this is their own crap, and they're sitting in it, and it's getting a little messy. It's getting a little ridiculous, but it's their own fault. But I when I think about it though, I really don't think that CD Projekt Red was just like, people are building this narrative like they're this like greedy corporation.
They were
and
malicious about it. Yeah.
And a bunch of guys on a yacht were like, we're gonna screw them over. Like, I don't think that's not our history with CD Projekt Red. They're one of the most pro-consumer companies. Like they've been like the light on top of the hill for like, we want BioWare to be more like CD Projekt Red. They've been tremendous in the past. I mean, they're giving right now, they've already said they're giving everyone that bought Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk on PS4 and Xbox the next gen version for free, whereas other games are making you buy the game again for $70. I mean,
Yeah,
they've been really good. If you look at the stuff with the author of Witcher series, where they sued CD Projekt Red, he sued CD Projekt Red, and this author literally said, like, to a journalist, that, oh yeah, like CD Projekt Red told me that like taking a lump sum was a bad deal and I should take royalties, but I told him to F off, give me lump sum now or get out of my face. And they were like, okay, and they gave him a lump sum. And then now when Witcher 3 is like hugely successful, he sues CD Projekt Red, and he acknowledges he did this too. Like he said that, like it came from his mouth to a journalist. And then CD Projekt Red was like, he doesn't have a case, but he created this world and we've benefited off of it. So we're going to pay him, and then we're going to renegotiate the contract because we don't want him to be unhappy. Like this has been a very good company in the past. And I think that what happened here is that they were so focused on creating art over like an actual product. And I think that this has just been a crappy year for them with COVID. They already knew they were going to delay. I think that they planned that the PlayStation 5, Sony at one point said they're going to have like 25 million PS5s on launch day. They didn't because of COVID. I think that all their workers were working from home. They were under tremendous pressure to not have these people work overtime. And so like,
I think they did anyway though, right?
Well, they did
From what I
like
understand.
a couple of weekends, but it was voluntary. Other times it was required, but it wasn't anything like The Witcher 3, where like some of those people are working 120 hours for like 8 months. And like, it was just intense. So I've kind of like, I don't feel like this is CD Projekt Red. I think that the game needed to come out. And I think that they probably shouldn't have put the console version out, but I think they thought they were going to be able to patch it before it came out. And they didn't have a good workflow from working people from home. I just think that the games were already printed. What were they going to do?
Yeah, I don't think at all that there was any malicious intent in releasing the console version.
They offered
I think
refunds.
one thing
Yeah.
people need to remember, that there are human beings making these decisions, and not every single decision they're going to make is a good one. I'm very sure what they were thinking is that they play tested it themselves and they're like, okay, maybe this isn't too bad. We'll try to get the patches in as soon as possible, and we'll deal with any kind of backlash that the console versions may give, and try to be as helpful as possible. And I think just the overwhelming negativity just um outweighed what they anticipated from it. Like I said, I don't think they made a good decision, but I don't think it was made in bad intent. I think there's a couple of things to consider. They had to get it released during the holidays. And they've already delayed it so many times that they were starting to become a meme. I'm sure there was like pressure on their end to get it out. And then again, and I also say it probably doesn't come off as malicious just because I've seen companies that have come off malicious. There was WB famously who released a really bad PC port of Arkham Knight, Batman Arkham Knight.
Yeah.
And instead of just coming out and saying, "Don't worry, guys, we're sorry that the game was in this state. We're patching it right now. We'll offer refunds." They were basically like, yeah, screw you. We're focusing on making DLC. If you don't like our buggy mess of a game, too bad. We're not going to do a thing about it. We're more focused on making DLC and more money."
Yeah.
Was it Activision that released a Crash game without any microtransactions and waited for it to be reviewed? And then after it was reviewed, they secretly put microtransactions into it?
It was Crash Team Racing, the remake of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What they did is they released it, waited for the reviews to come out that were like specifically saying, "Oh, it's just a great racing game with like minimal DLC." And then I think about a month later, they released the microtransactions in the game, which was very, very sneaky, very shady.
I think they did the same thing with one of their Call of Duty games. I remember it had like a loot box system, but it was only in game, right? So you could only earn a box that gave you random guns or equipment. But then, yeah, like 2 months after the game was released and all the reviews had come in, they just patched in the ability to pay like $1.99 to buy as many boxes as you want.
Yeah, and take note with the Crash game, there is usually there is something that tells you this game has additional content that costs money, like on the packaging somewhere, and not there. And there's nothing in features or interviews or previews, anything that remotely mentions that there is going to be microtransactions in the game.
Yeah. So there's lots of I think worse things, because they're even saying, hey, if you can't get a refund, contact us. So I think I think I see some people saying that CD Projekt Red should be reaching out to gamers, or gamers should be able to contact them directly to get a refund. But how do you figure out who bought what?
No,
because Joe Blow down the road that didn't buy the game would want a refund.
All they can do is try to facilitate a refund through your retailer or PlayStation Store or whatever, wherever you bought the game.
Yeah.
Like if you have if you buy some new Nikes or something and you go shoot some hoops and they explode on you, right? Like you can contact Nike and get a refund, perhaps, shipped to you. But this is a little different. Yeah.
I was actually wondering about that. You said earlier that they will attempt to return the item on your behalf.
So you tell them where you bought it, and then they will contact that location and try to get them to allow a refund.
There's thousands of people, though. How many people do they have working on this refund thing? It can't be.
Well, I mean,
it's got to be
it's probably a tremendous project. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a crap show right now.
They probably just crapped someone's Christmas.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're bombarded with emails to that.
Well, lots of people
link.
that probably reached out to Sony and then didn't get an immediate response, and then emailed them and then got a response an hour later, and so there's probably lots of that going on too. But here's the.
I just imagine working at Walmart and just picking up the phone and being like, God damn, it's the director of CD Projekt Red again. It's like, yes, fine, we'll return this 12th one.
They have the actor for Guilt of Rivia calling people. Give him a refund. Anyways, but I think like I want to bring up one point before I forget. Like I still think it was really crappy for them to not allow review copies for the console version. And Eric, like you said, the only show certain footage. But I think that they just didn't even think about it like the way it would come across. Because, and if you see, game developers are notoriously upset about like these legacy gaming media outlets that aren't really adapting to 2020. And so what happens is they want the game like 2 weeks in advance. And this is like a cutting edge, innovative open world game. Open world games are naturally buggy to begin with. Not this buggy at launch, but they are pretty buggy. And so you send them the game and then they'll review the game without even the day one patch. And then that's like the score forever, right? Very rarely will they go back and like correct the score. So I think them being like wanting that critical acclaim, I think that they said, no, PC version only. If you want to review the game, wait for the day one patch, which is what they did. And they still got a 5 out of 10. So, and they're offering refunds too. I just don't like, I don't buy this idea that like they're giving you the PS5 version for free. I don't see this world where they just like, we're really wanting to make money. And that's, they thought, oh, they would just screw people over to make it, you know, I don't know. Maybe somebody that,
wrong, but they're not beyond redemption. They shouldn't be crucified.
Yeah.
It's something that can be fixed. They're willing to fix it. They're willing to give you a refund. They're going to have 2 major patches up to February that they say will make it work. By the way, thank you console players for beta testing it for us.
Yeah, but the reaction to this is warranted in many respects, but it also has to make you wonder if you care about workers' rights, if you want these game developers not to put in so much crunch.
Oh,
you like, is there anyone that believes that CD Projekt Red is not going to, like 6 months from now, this game isn't going to be immensely better? You know, like it's, if, what's that?
Get ready for some thumbs down here, but
well, don't just
crunch time is not the worst thing ever, especially near the end of a project.
Well, I don't want to like minimize it because like, look, I work a ton of overtime too. It sucks. It's bad for your health. It's not what people want a lot of times. It can be intrusive, but and I don't want to like come across, or for us to come across like we don't care, can't empathize. I guess what I'm trying to say is like, and Jim Sterling kind of made a video about this in so many words and said basically like, hey, you sat there and said you want the industry to get better. Do you think the next CD Projekt Red game, they're not going to do crunch now after this? They're going to have investors breathing down their freaking necks like, this thing better not have a single bug in it on release.
You obviously don't want to crunch to the point that it's inhumane, or you want to force people, make them feel like they're going to get fired if they don't crunch. But when you get near the completion of a project, and this is from my work,
inform
also,
people that's where they messed up. Yeah,
I put last week alone, I put 25 more hours than I do in the usual week because we had to get something done before a certain date. We were in a commitment with a company that purchased laptops through us, and we had to get all of these image and process and everything done before the date. And then my boss just said, anyone who wants overtime is more than welcome. Come in, get it done. If you can't, then it is what it is. But we heavily encourage you to come in and help us get this done. And it is what it is. You have to get this done before a certain time. And now I understand if they're making them work like nights and days for like months or years in the development of it, that's not cool. But if you're like at the last few weeks of the project, like I understand that you need to put a little more time than you usually do. I don't think it should be to the point that it affects your health or your social life, or if you have wife and kids and such, you got to cater to their needs and everything too. But the idea of crunch in the circumstances of the last few weeks to make sure the product is as good as it should be, I don't think you should be condemned. for
I
that.
agree. Yeah. I think though that what like advocates and Jim Sterling are pointing out that is like more and more that's not the case, that it's just the last few weeks. And a lot of that I think has to do with scope, like creep
Mm-hmm.
of the game, where all of a sudden it's like we can do so much more, right? Or like there's so much more we can harness from the PS5 version, or the latest graphics card or something. Like we can now put more features in our game, and they're not um, planning that well, I guess, and understanding how much more that's going to add to at the end of the project. So they do end up crunching for like 6 months prior to release for certain companies. Like I know like Rockstar was really bad with it, and Naughty Dog recently with like The Last of Us and stuff. So it is becoming more and more of a like long-term crunch issue, and I think that's why we hear more and more about it.
This is interesting because I was curious because I thought I remembered like the last time they delayed the game, they gave kind of a small hint of this. And I just want to read like one sentence or maybe two sentences. They said, "Today we've decided to move the release date of Cyberpunk by 21 days. The new release date is December 10th. Most likely there are many emotions and questions in your head. So first and foremost, please accept our humble apologies. The biggest challenge for us right now is shipping the game on current gen, next gen, and PC at the same time, which requires us to prepare and test 9 versions of it, the Xbox One series and then
Yeah.
the One X, compatibility on the Series S and Series X, PS4, PS4 Pro, PS5, PC, and Stadia, which apparently the Stadia versions might be the best version aside from
Oh, I was
PC.
just joking. Oh, okay. Man,
But
that sounds like a nightmare though. That many consoles to test it all on.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just like they already acknowledged they screwed up a little bit by prioritizing the PC version. But I agree that, planning is it was poorly planned. That's obvious. I think that's obvious. However, I think that this has been a crazy year. I mean, they probably had a workflow in place that was working. They've addressed a lot of issues and got it, flowing. But then you send everyone home for 10 months, which you had to. There was a
Mhm.
serious issue going on in the world. I'm not that you had to do that, but to be able to accurately play test it as efficiently as you were at the office is not going to happen. And from what I understand, with crunch time before, they were like they were getting aggressive with keeping people at work, and when the people are sitting at home, this is like, that's screw you. I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that like they shouldn't have the right to do that. I'm just saying that their prior workflows were not. It probably took them a while to come up with a new flow to get stuff done, and they've got a new process that they're getting updates and stuff. And I think that, like, you know what? I don't like that they didn't allow game reviews until the console version had received its patches. But, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, they're
I
offering
think
refunds. I think it's going to be fixed. So,
yeah, I think the mistakes they made, were serious mistakes. Crunch or no crunch, we're not sure how much, they had to really work extra to get the game out the door, and then when it comes out, it's buggy. Clearly they didn't test enough for the current gen of consoles. And but I think in regards to the reception, like after, post launch, it's been pretty good. They've pushed out 2 patches in like 5 days, like trying to
4
address as
patches.
much as 4 patches already.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And they've come out with their statement that gave a timeline of a major patch in January, major patch in February. Like, so there's already like a roadmap, sort of,
Hmm.
an outline, I guess, not really a roadmap, but then so that they're on the right track, I think, to fixing the issue already, just a few days after, the disaster that was the
Yeah.
first couple days of launch. So
Well, not
I
to
think
mention, people, Best Buy sent the console version out early. So that didn't even
mm,
have the day one patch, and people were playing it for like 3 days. But I can't even imagine that mess. But
yikes, maybe those are the people who went straight to Metacritic.
I do
I'm
think this
sure.
is gonna blow over ultimately when stuff gets fixed. I don't know if people remember this back in 2015,
Oh
but
yeah. Yeah.
Witcher 3 had a rough launch too. It it did
Yeah, it
have it
did.
was a very buggy game in itself, and even to this day, you can find a bug here and there that
Well,
happens in the game. Definitely nowhere near as much when it first came out, but it's still regarded today as one of the greatest open world RPGs ever made, despite the issues you had. And like Hat said, he's been playing it for 25 hours, and the game in a fixed state it's still a really good game.
yeah.
But I think as soon as these bugs get ironed out, I think there will be just probably a little heat that they'll probably get a couple more shots here and there, but people forget. They really do. And over time, especially when a new DLC expansion will come out for the game, everyone's going to be like, this is the greatest game since Witcher 3. And
Yeah,
I almost guarantee it that's going to be the situation. But they're getting this first few months of heat, and
yeah. I
kind of
think
they do kind of deserve it.
I think like Hat mentioned before, though, it is kind of blown out of proportion. Or I mean, at least people are making a huge deal out of it when it will likely be resolved within 6 months. Mostly. But I think part of it is because in the minds of gamers, like CD Projekt Red was one of the good guys, right?
And this is
Left
their
of
descent into EA territory.
yes, like if EA released a new basketball game or Madden football game, and the PS5 version was like a well-made game, and then the PS4 version was just like a buggy mess and like ran at low resolution, people would be like, well, of course, it's EA, right? They and even if EA came out and said they'll fix it, they'll be like, people would say, well, it's no excuse, but we don't expect any better from EA at this point. Or like
Yeah.
if Ubisoft released, if the new Assassin's Creed was like ran poorly on PS4, but on PS5 it was great.
Yeah.
They would get flack for it, right? But it's not. People would be thinking to themselves, well, Ubisoft is not above doing something like that.
Right.
Whereas in people's mind, CD Projekt Red, because they have those pro-consumer
Mhm.
policies in the past, like this is the first time for many people who have really, I guess, in their minds, been burned, right? Like been burned by a pre-order of their game. Because I think Witcher 3 really gained reputation over time, right? And
Mhm.
I'm sure it sold well at launch, but it like there was really big, long, like a long tail, I guess, of sales for that game. Like people kept buying the game well after the initial release, so they didn't experience that buggy version back in 2015.
Well, here's the
And so
thing.
they
Oh, go ahead.
they
Yeah,
thought they thought they were getting a Witcher 3 quality game on release for Cyberpunk,
Here's
and
but
the
the
here's the
reviews
thing:
for PC seem to indicate that, but then they didn't. So people feel burned because this is the first time that this company has really um,
people
got one
need
over on them, as
to
some conspiracies,
Go ahead,
are
Eric.
saying.
yeah, people need to learn the difference between pro consumer and being perfect. They're not the
Well,
same thing.
CD Projekt Red fell very far with the console version, but yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah. So what I've always been told, like on the workforce, is that mistakes are always going to happen in the company. It is you can't avoid it. Something bad is going to happen. The shit's going to hit the fan. The what people appreciate at the end of the day is what you do to make it right. They may get angry or heated with you, but what sets you apart from other companies is when you do make those mistakes, what do you do to make them right?
Yeah.
And that is what pro consumer is. Pro consumer is when the things get bad, the company will have your back and they will make it right. Companies like EA and Activision and WB, who ironically did with like Witcher 3, but
If this was
uh,
a if this
helped.
was an EA game, they would have said EA would have like posted something on Twitter that would have been infuriating. Like we promise we missed the mark slightly in some gamers' eyes, or something like that. Or like they would have just acted like there wasn't a problem. But like CD Projekt Red is just like, no, we're not even coming up with an excuse. We messed up. Everything people are saying is true. Like
I think
they're going that
in
far.
those standards, though, CD Projekt Red is still way, way above
Oh yeah.
the other companies. I still
There's no
think,
microtransactions in the Cyberpunk. I mean, for one. I mean, come on.
yeah, and they're doing a similar thing with Witcher, right? They're going to release like whole expansions to
Well,
things.
yeah, they said that well, I don't know right now. This might have changed things because I don't know. We'll see about the future of Cyberpunk. But before the game was released, they said that this game was going to have as many expansions as The Witcher 3, at least. There was that many planned.
So
But,
too.
well, yeah, but then anyways, but those were like an extra 30 hours each. So it's,
They were two very damn good expansions.
yeah. So I want to say one more thing about the Witcher analogy though as well is that I was reading an article like a day or so ago, and Witcher 3 at launch before the game came out, like because it got delayed, like it had a delay cycle similar to this, and before it was going to come out and they delayed it again, they knew there was like over 9,000 bugs that they were aware of in the game, and they just made the decision to delay it again because they're like, that's way too many. And but they're like, there's no way they're going to be able to fix it, right? In the amount of time that they delayed it. But they got it down to 5,000, and they released it knowing it had 5,000 bugs in it, and they fixed it over 8 months and got it like to where it is now. And then obviously all the expansions and various bugs were resolved as well over the years. But on launch day, GameSpot gave the game a 10 out of 10, right? And obviously Witcher 3 wasn't as buggy as Cyberpunk is now. So that's important to remember. But I think that perhaps that was also because it's the same people heading this project that headed Witcher 3 at that time. And they probably in their mindset were thinking back to the prior experience and thinking, okay, at some point I remember you just have to pull the trigger and try to make do. And they probably were remembering back to GameSpot giving them a 10 out of 10 and these other outlets saying this game's amazing, and thinking that it was going to be a similar reception. But it's been 5 years, man. Like the people's expectations grow.
My guess is those people who are probably the decision makers, right? The business people at the top are saying, hey, we launched Witcher 3 with 5,000 bugs. We cut it down from 9,000, and then we eventually got rid of all of those.
And they've already delayed 4 times, so maybe this conversation's happened 4 times by the time.
Yeah. So they're probably saying like, we can get it out the door and we can fix it over time, just like we did Witcher 3. But there was probably some poor, team of coders who were like, no, guys, like not this time. Like,
you understand it crashes.
Like the severity of Cyberpunk's 5,000 bugs or whatever are like much more severe. But they probably said like, you guys can do it. Like we pulled it off before, and then they said, oh, they probably just threw their hands up at one point. We're like, okay, here we go.
So do you guys think they should have just delayed this game again? I mean,
I think they should have delayed the console versions at least.
Yeah, the console version probably.
Just put the PC version out there. I think honestly, it's crazy if they had even delayed just a week and got at least these first 4 patches out. I don't know if that would have how much of a difference that would have made because if they still tried to hide the console version, that probably still would have pissed people off. But I gotta think like that would have made a tremendous difference.
I actually would have done something a little ballsier. I would have done this like back in April when they first delayed it, because I'm very sure a lot of the delays were related to getting the other console versions to work.
Yeah.
I would have just straight out said, hey guys, we tried to make it work on current consoles, but unfortunately, the game, the way we have it, it's just it's too much to optimize for these consoles. We have decided to officially cancel the PS4 and Xbox One version. We're sorry. We'll offer refunds to any pre-orders, and but we will be releasing the game for PS5 and Xbox
Series X.
Series X. And Xbox Series X. We will be releasing it on those consoles at a later time, but we will continue to release the PC version at such and such date. Thank you for your understanding. You would have gotten some people pissed off, console players for sure, but I think ultimately it would have been a better decision than trying to get a game apparently as powerful as this to run on these consoles that are struggling so hard
Yeah.
to get it in a working condition. Like you said, it's 30 frames per second. It drops horribly in crowded areas. It's very buggy. It's I'm sorry. It From everything I hear, I think they're trying to pull like a Witcher 3 on the Switch and trying to get a game that's not really meant for the console to make it work. And instead of trying to go out of your way to do that when you're still trying to get the game to release uh its first run of it, I just don't think it's a good decision. I would have just canceled those versions and released it on PS5 and Xbox Series X.
That would, but I guess they would have to wait, like, and then what, delayed it like a year to like in April
I would have
2021.
released the PC version first then.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wonder if the PC version was like maybe even ready like back in September. Like when they did remember they did the first delay that went from
September, maybe
April all the way to the September. That was the second date that they had.
Well,
and I wonder if the PC version was ready at that point, and then the rest of the delays was all related to the console versions, like Eric said.
We have to remember the early access codes that were sent out for the PC version. Reviewers that reviewed that did mention the bugs being an issue, and I'm assuming they got the codes in like November. So, but CD Projekt Red said the game was fully playable in like March last year. They just said they're fixing bugs. So I'm sure the PC version was probably maybe it was probably in a better version than the console version is now back in September, probably, to be honest, because you can overcompensate a lot of issues if you have like a very powerful PC. I mean, a lot of those crashing issues will probably be resolved, and the framed drops that can probably be resolved with just a beastly PC. So, but the bugs with not being able to finish side quests and stuff like that, that's probably the demon from hell that just keeps popping up. Like, Jesus Christ! Every time I fix one, 3 pop up. Because it's a very engrossing world. So, Eric, I kind of agree with you. I think I would have still done the PS4 and Xbox One version, but I would have just done the PC version. I would have delayed this another week, so it would be coming out like in like 3 days, maybe on the 18th, right before Christmas, for PC. And that way they would have gotten a lot more updates or patches out. And that way the PC version would have been as good as they're going to get it. Obviously without delaying for another 8 months, but have those console versions come out the same day the PS5 and Series X version comes out, because we still don't have that version. So that version is supposed to come out in 2021. So I would just plan for, just like you said, Eric, I would just explain, hey, it's a great game. We're having a hard time getting it to run on the PS4. Not even gonna lie, and then people get to it that want to play it, can play it on PC. It'll get great reviews. People will be really excited. Maybe people will buy new PCs just to play it. And then eventually 9 months from now, when it comes to PS4, it's in a much better stage. They don't have as much pressure to put it out there. And I mean, then they can launch the PS5 version at the same time and have that actually be out there. Because right now it's confusing. People think that like the PS5 version is the PS4 version, but it's like, no, there's another version that's actually coming too. So,
yeah, I mean, if I was told that the decision was final, the game has to be on PS4 and Xbox One also, then yeah, I probably would take a similar approach. But if I was like, I have free reign, I can decide to do this however I want, I would have just canceled them.
Laid the hammer down, huh?
I say this as someone who does not own a PS5 or an Xbox Series X.
Yeah.
I would be fine with canceling, and a mid-tier PC, by the way. I don't have a high-spec PC by any means. I would have just said cancel them. they're too much of a burden. They're taking up our time. They can't optimize well to the level of the current or the next gen consoles. Let's just sweep it to the side, tell people we're sorry. It's just not happening. But on the other hand, if those did have to release, I would have released the PC version now, because as you said, there was 4.6 million people who bought it for PC. That's a extremely impressive number. It's like every PC player in the world.
Yeah, were PC.
It's like every PC player in the world just got this game, and then I guess and the other half was console. At least they'll lay that to February when they had the 2 patches ready.
Yeah, that's my thoughts too. But the issue, I think, is the holiday, and
yes,
I'm sure the investors in the company were like, "No, you don't, you don't take those Christmas sales from us, right? Like, come on, you've been working on this game for this long, like,
and
you have to take
you have to take into account too. Not everyone's going to return the game. I think it's just going to be a select amount of people. I think some are actually going to wait for patches, or they're either playing the game and telling themselves, it's not as bad as people are saying it is. I'm still able to play it. I don't mind some slowdowns. I mean, there's a whole mix of people with different opinions in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the amount of people who are really going out of their way with CD Projekt Red, and I'm sure most retail are like, yeah, we'll just return it.
Well, Walmart's actually apparently warning people when they try to check out with it that the Xbox One version is really bad.
Yeah,
why did you even put it on your shelves?
I saw that OpenCritic put a message on the game, like when you like search for Cyberpunk and go to OpenCritic and open it, the first thing you get is a message that says that there's like a huge discrepancy between the performance of the PC version of the game and basically every other version. Yeah. And they said, so buyer beware, basically. But then they said, like, we're going to remove this like in February, like in a couple months. We'll get rid of this disclaimer.
They're already like acknowledging that's going to be fixed.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we already know that the patches are going to fix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what would be cool? Let's say that the game is like almost all the major issues have been fixed for the console version, and it runs for what it does. Do you think it would be good for reviewers to come back and re-review it as a more fixed product and change your score?
I think they're really relying on like the Digital Foundry type like content creators to like Cyberpunk 2077 on the PS4 6 months later. Like, how does it hold up? Like, how does it compare? Because I don't think IGN or like GameSpot is going to do like a Cyberpunk 2077 2.0 review for consoles. Like
they've done that like twice. So they might do it for Cyberpunk because it'll get them a ton of traction, but I don't think they do that normally.
If CD Projekt Red wanted them to do that, they would like release a patch that like changes the subtitle of the game, like a Realm Reborn type of thing, and then people are like, oh yeah, like we gotta, like it's the review outlets will see that and be like, okay, so they're telling us it's vastly different or improved in some way, so we have to weigh in. People have to know, how this version of Cyberpunk is.
They'll just
I don't know
wait
if they'll
till
do
the
that.
PS5 version comes out and just review that and be like, this is great. Dude, that PS5 and Xbox Series X version is not coming out until there's not a damn bug on it. Like it's like they're gonna play test that like for like 1 billion hours. They're gonna be trying to like cook toast in it, and like it's just gonna like okay, we fired a missile launcher at it. It still is playing. Like we're good. But
that is true. I don't think we'll probably see those versions for at least half a year to a year.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while because they want to make sure. But I don't know. Let's jump into our impressions because we're running pretty long on this. I've played it on PC. I put a lot of time into it, so I think I might have the most to say. But Stan, I know you said you were able to get some time in on the PS4 version. So
yes,
what was your experience on that?
I had a brief playing of the game. I got about 3 hours into the game, and honestly, the first I want to say 30 minutes of the game is kind of like an intro sequence, depending on what backstory you choose for your character.
Mm-hmm.
And I chose the corpo, like the corporate guy.
I chose Street Kid. I was tempted to do Corpo, but
well, I think that might have improved my initial session with the game, which was like about an hour or so, because that section of the game is mostly indoors.
Yeah.
And so like I was not seeing any like texture pop in or like buggy NPCs or anything like really egregious for the first hour or so of the game.
That's the thing. And I think that contained areas run a lot better, right?
Yeah, and I think that's because it is like in a separate section or some section where they know that you can't escape from, so they don't have to be rendering like the environment outside of that room essentially that I was in, or that corporate building where you start in. So, and I was actually like first, because I knew the negative reception of the game before I started playing it, and so I was playing it and I'm like, what is everybody complaining about? I guess things really go off the rails at some point. and it was, when you get into that open world area, first of all, it's way scaled back. There's so few NPCs that I was like, is this the Cyberpunk genre? Because when you think of Cyberpunk, you think of stuff like Blade Runner, right? Or, Akira and stuff like that, where it's like if you have a big city, it's supposed to be like very densely populated.
Yeah.
And like streets are like narrow because of the cars or vehicles going by and everything. So I didn't really get that feeling. So it was kind of like there's this city kind of center area and it's like so open. And
I have a quick question.
12 people here.
Quick question. Is the game set in a actual city, or is it like
Night
a fictional city?
Yeah, it's set in Night City, which is pretty much like
it's the capital of New York, right?
Isn't it in California?
Come on, man. I was joking.
Is it inspired by a particular city?
Probably, but it's not an actual real city. It reminds me of Las Vegas, but like a little bit larger. But
because like pre-COVID New York, there's just so many people walking in the street. It's like it's always crowded. I would imagine it's hard to replicate that in a video game, but
PC
I'm sure
version it does.
But anyway,
keep going, Sam.
Well, that's one thing that's like, once I saw that and got that kind of feeling from the game, I was like, I don't know how much longer I want to play this, because I just knew, the PC version is not like this. So there's,
it's a difference.
That's kind of like part of the setting, or like the genre is like a very crowded city with like all kinds of insane, nasty stuff happening like around every street corner, right?
Right.
But I couldn't feel like there was something happening around every street corner because there was only ever like 8 people max on my screen at any one time. So it's like it made it kind of feel a little hollow in that aspect. And then as I played a little more, I got like a couple crashes, and I got blurry textures like on a computer, like the character goes up to a computer and like accesses it, and I'm like rubbing my eyes, like trying to read it. I'm like,
so is this where you have to like hack it and you have to pick the numbers, or is this like no. You can I know there's different computer panels you can access for different things. Okay,
is it like Witcher 3 where like the text is like so tiny you needed to put your face up to the screen? Because that was definitely a thing before Witcher patched that. Like the text was so tiny.
Well, I think it was just blurry, right? That was the problem.
Yeah, I didn't have any problem with the UI text. So if there's like telling you like push circle to skip or whatever, like, or like showing you your health or your ammo or anything, all of that was like pretty clear. But it was the in-game, like in the environment text. Like if I had to read like a street sign sometimes, or like a newspaper, Like I remember I was like trying to read the newspapers that are just like scattered on the ground.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't read them. They're like they're just scribbles. They're just nonsense on the quality of them, basically. So, and that is kind of where I was like, I'm really just playing this so we can talk about it on the podcast, but I don't really want to subject myself to much more of this because I don't want it to color my perception of the game. Like I'd much rather just wait a few months and try again and then have a much better experience if I can, or just wait for the PS5 version altogether,
That was my mindset also, is that I'm just going to wait till the bugs are ironed out, give it a few months to get a more premier version. I do plan on getting it on PC eventually. And from what I've heard, the PC version does run pretty great, but like I said, it's one of those games that I'd rather wait for the some patches to make it feel like a much better experience than the initial one.
Mhm.
So that's as far as I can go in my review. I put 0 hours.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I can't really recommend the game to anybody in its current state, which after the last segment we had, I'm sure is not surprising to anybody.
Yeah. I've been playing it on PC. I'm so happy, by the way, because my initial plan was to buy this game on the PS5.
Oh yes.
And I was going to buy the PS4 version and be like blown away by the backwards compatibility. And it was going to be like, and I was just like, I couldn't get a PS5 or a Series X. So I was like, I got to play it on my PC. Crap. Which I have a great PC, but I wanted to play it on next gen consoles. And I'm so happy because this has just been a marvelous experience for me. And then when I go
you dodged
online,
a bullet there.
and I'm just like seeing everybody breaking down, I'm just like, it almost like makes me feel like a crappy person because I'm just like, but I like this. Like I'm having a great time. And meanwhile, people are just like crying almost because they've been looking forward to this for so long. And it's just not the same. And so honestly, guys, like I said, I'm 25 hours in. So it's, it's if you just want to get through the main story and you don't do any side quests or anything, you can get through the main story apparently in like 20 hours if you just only do main quests. But the thing is, the amount of content available, there's so many different endings, there's so many branching narratives that the game can easily be like 100 hours. And so
aren't there like 2 whole different characters to play?
Well, you can choose between
different experience.
Well, you can choose between male and female. That doesn't change anything. But then you can choose between Night City or Night, what is it, Street Kid or whatever, Corpo, and then I can't remember the name of the other one. Do you understand?
No, the Nomad. Yeah, but I think those 3 stories are kind of the introduction for your character. But they converge pretty quick to like the main plot.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much they affect like going throughout the game, like how your character interacts with the other characters. I didn't really play enough to notice that.
Yeah. So I know, yeah, from what I can tell from seeing other people's experiences from playing from my own, if you do choose Nomad, you start off in kind of the outskirts of town in this like desert area, but you still have Jackie that you run into, but it's a different sequence of events on how you run into Jackie. And so there's different missions from what I understand. And so, but you are right that the general beats are the same to the reveal of Cyberpunk. And then I think from there on, the game is mostly similar. However, there are like little perks to what you choose. Because I chose Street Kid, a lot of times in the dialogue options, I can use Street Kid and he'll be able to use some like street, slang that'll kind of get him by a situation, or he can, connect with the character more easily. And I've heard of those with Corpo have similar where they can, they talk to people in suits and stuff a little bit better and stuff like that. So there is a difference in that respect. But I think like the biggest, guys, this game has just been blowing me away because I literally cannot tell a difference a lot of the times between a side quest and a main quest. Sometimes I just feel like what I'm experiencing right now is part of the main story. And because it seems involved with it and we're going on this just wild rabbit hole, And then like I'll read online and somebody didn't experience that. They experienced something else that I didn't experience, but it can't, like I can clearly tell from what they're talking about that I'm past that point, and I didn't venture
Missed
down
it,
that
or
path. Yeah.
I got a question for
But
you.
they didn't get my route either. Yeah.
So in The Witcher 3, what I really liked about it
Mm-hmm.
was that the side quest served a purpose to the main story,
Mm-hmm.
because Geralt was a Witcher and made sense for him to take on jobs for people to either earn coin or find means to get closer to finding Ciri.
Mm-hmm.
And so the subquests and the world had purpose. Do you feel that is the same case for Cyberpunk, or do they approach it differently?
Yeah. So I think that first off, I will say, to just directly answer your question, I think that it takes the Witcher 3 approach. Like when I'm playing this, I'm like, dude, CD Projekt Red is just like masters at side quests. Like this is so above and beyond like other games that I've played. It's crazy. And I keep thinking back to Final Fantasy 15 and being like, dude, this is embarrassingly like better. Like it's
You
just
mean
like this is like Final Fantasy 15 was like a preschooler, and this is like someone with like a PhD. Like it's
you
just
mean
crazy.
you mean Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't have you like searching for frogs like in
No,
some
I
puddles?
mean, it
Or
might. I just,
Or
it,
getting million gill behemoth steak to put in your 15-cent ramen noodle cup?
no.
that's good.
But it's just crazy because I never know what's going to take me down this journey. And they really focus on like relationships, right? And building relationships with characters, but it's not like Persona, right? But it's just maybe in a Western way. I don't know. But it's just, it encapsulates you in a way with the story that I haven't really experienced before. And have you ever seen that HBO show, Westworld? Where it's basically the show about how you can go to this like kind of theme park type area, but it's just this Wild West area that's been manufactured, and it's ran with like robot actors, but people get so immersed into it that they forget the difference between reality and that these are robots. And they start to think that the robots, like they've clued into the robot, like the robot's not actually acting now, but that's just
Mm.
part of the game. And they don't realize that they've been fooled by it. And it's almost to like that degree to where I'm just like, dude, this is crazy. I cannot tell if this is a main quest or a regular quest. This is insane. And I'm like getting attached to the characters, but like some people don't even know who those people are. Like it's crazy that they're that good at it. And it
Mm.
does tie into the story in terms of Jackie does jobs. Like he's kind of like a goon.
It's like a bounty hunter kind of,
Well, yeah,
right?
kind of like he tends to work for like shady people, and that's kind of the setting for him.
Yeah.
The main character V, I think I said Jackie, but Jackie as well. But they go around and just do missions for people that usually involve roughing people up. It's all about gaining respect in the neighborhood, right, in the city, and like being remembered. But the thing is, the world is so well built and it's so corrupt and disgusting. It's just like sometimes I'm almost like I need to take a break because this is too intense. I mean, there's like whole groups of people that have these like sexual fetishes where they'll do these brain dances, which is where they'll just relive. It allows you to play out people's memories, and they pull it out of their dead body, and it's people that got killed, right? But you can experience the memory as if you were that person, and people get such a high off just the shock of getting killed that they're like addicted. And there's this whole culture of like of people wanting to experience more gruesome deaths. So now you have people that are like literally killing people in the most gruesome way possible just to pull that memory out and then sell it, and it's like crack cocaine to people, right? And
That's
dude, but
Sounds
like,
like a Black Mirror episode.
dude,
yeah.
it's like there's, dude, some of it I'm just like, oh, good God, I have to stop watching because like they do incorporate some of this in there because I'm trying to figure out, where I need to go in the city, and so I'll re-experience this memory, and you can pause the memory and you can zoom in on certain things because it's somehow they explained it's recording the memory, and you can look around the room and stuff. And so like I can look at a coffee cup and notice like, oh, that's a coffee cup. It has a logo on it. I know where that store is. It looks like there's hot steam coming out of it. So it's probably nearby. And like you can start putting the clues together of where to go and things like that. So it does tie into the story, but it's just like the place is such a jacked up place to live that like I can't even like it's
All right.
terrible.
Speaking of intense, Keanu.
Yeah. So
great part of the game or the greatest part of the game?
Did you get the Keanu Stan?
I didn't make it that far.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. That's the thing. I was surprised how long it takes to get to him, which I don't know. It's like 5 hours or so, I think. But he is awesome. He gives occasionally some stiff delivery with his lines where I'm like, Jesus, Keanu, like these
that's him in certain roles. Let's be honest, you know.
Yeah,
that happens from time to time.
He's not the best. Sometimes, yeah, it's pretty stiff, but other times he nails it. But the thing that I'm surprised about is how much of a role he plays in the story. Because, dude, he did a lot of lines. Because this character is basically attached to your main character, and he'll just pop up and start like he's always smoking a cigar and just commenting on like what's going on, and he's just an asshole, but he's also like on your team in a way, right? So it's kind of like this, like kind of like he helps you figure stuff out, but he's always just commenting on stuff, and sometimes it's not even main story related. You might talk to an NPC, and he'll just come out and start commenting on it, and I'm like, dude, they got Keanu Reeves to record frivolous dialogue. Like it's crazy to me how much dialogue this guy does.
So it's kind of like the Joker in Arkham Knight, where he just like pops up out of nowhere while you're doing your campaign and has comments and say things to help you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm trying to like not spoil too much, but I do think if you've seen some of the trailers, you kind of get the idea that he's been implanted in your head a little bit. So other people can't see him, but you can. But he's this infamous character that, anyways, that the city's aware of. So he's an iconic character in the city. So
he's like your Nabby,
I guess. I don't.
Look, if I had to choose someone to be my Nabby in a epic Zelda quest, it would be Keanu.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sure. Why not? But I mean, dude, he's awesome though. Like I really like his character a lot, and the other characters as well that I'm experiencing a story with. I find that I'm getting attached to, and like they feel real and just like actual people, and it's just really well done, and I'm just really liking it. The thing that is absurd with this game is the amount of unique crap in the game, right? So if you play Witcher 3 or if you play like an Elder Scrolls game or any RPG, a lot of times they have like that standard architecture that you'll find in like every house. So like Witcher 3, if you go to a village and you look inside the house and then you go to a village on the other side of the continent and go inside a house, the layout might be different, but it's the same type of wood and the walls. It's the same stock, like table and chairs, it's the same size bookshelf. They literally, every place you go into has completely unique architecture. They built from the ground up. There's unique crap and unique shelves. Like I'm not finding duplicates of like really anything. And it's crazy. Like the other day I was looking at a dumpster of trash bags in the game that was overflowing, and they rendered like 52 separate trash bags instead of like copying and pasting it over again. And that just adds so much immersion to it, because like you go to one building and then you go to the next one and it's like completely new furniture and like everything. It's like, I never thought about it, but like Stan, if I go to your house and hang out and then I go to Eric's house to hang out, why would you all have the same furniture? Like
we wouldn't. Yeah, like I think that's like a limitation of the previous gen hardware, right? Talking about Witcher 3, they had to reuse assets.
Right. Like, so it's the same stock bushes that look good, but that's the bush. If you're going to have bushes and long grass, that's that grass. It's not, there's there's variety, but not a lot of it.
Now, on the PC version, have you encountered like duplicate NPCs? Because they have so many more NPCs.
Okay, I've encountered like there's different types of enemies. Like there's some like cybernetic enemies, like people that have gone way too far with incorporating technology into them to the point where they've even like removed their eyes and they just have like red eyes now and crazy stuff like that. And a lot of times I might see NPCs that kind of look similar because they're shooting at me and like I haven't really gone up and looked at them, but thinking back, I think that perhaps some of those might look a little bit similar, but like with people walking around, as of right now, I haven't noticed anyone that looked like a copy. And there's tons of people walking around and like all the cars are like bumper to bumper and just like it's crazy. Now I'm sure if I just took screenshots of every NPC and lined them up, there's got to be a duplicate somewhere. But
yeah,
it's crazy how much attention to detail they've put into this. And I just can't believe they did this. It's insane.
So what you're telling me is it's not like FF15 where two of the same NPCs are talking to each other at a dining
No.
yeah, that's
gas station that all look the same.
Yeah, because that's jarring. And Final Fantasy VII Remake had that issue too, though not quite to the same degree, I think, as FF15 did. But it did happen occasionally where it's like you see this NPC and then you just like run down the street and then it's like, oh, now he's over here. Or is that a different person who looks exactly the same?
Yeah, like, but the thing is, you don't even like realize how that impacts your immersion, you know? So when you don't have stuff like that and everything is unique and you turn a block corner and it's completely new architecture and everything, and every building you go into has a TV program playing that I've never seen before. And it's just, I'm constantly being bombarded with world building, with newspapers and people talking about stuff. And like, it's just, dude, this is just like amazing what they were able to accomplish with this, you know? So I'm just really liking it. Now, we'll see. I'll keep playing it. Perhaps if I get later in the game, maybe I'll get a little bit tired with it, but it's insane. I'm really, really enjoying it a lot.
Well, Hat, you've convinced me to never boot up the PS4 version again.
I wouldn't play that version.
Yeah, that sounds nothing like my brief experience I had with the game.
And that sounds like a bunch of crazy stuff. Like I am definitely going to play it.
It is
one day.
It is an RPG, by the way, too. I was worried that it was going to be like very Grand Theft Auto, but it's full blown like stat building system and you know, skill trees and just leveling up. And you know, if you level up and like you progress your character correctly, like your weapons will do more damage, and you know, you can attack with swords and those will do more damage. Or you know, there's all sorts of, anyways, I could go on for like another hour about the gameplay, but I just want to point out that it is an RPG. It's a full blown, it's not one of these half measure like Horizon Zero Dawn or Ghost of Tsushima or something like that, where it's kind of, but not really. This is literally a full blown RPG as well. So
well, that's good, because that'd be awkward to talk about this game.
Yeah, this would be a very awkward
podcast.
episode. But anyways, so that's my impressions with the game so far. I'll definitely update you guys if I complete it. I've got some time off for the holidays, so I'm absolutely planning on just plowing through this game some more. But let's jump into the Game Awards here and kind of we're gonna quickly as we can anyways, go through some of the announcements, and we'll try to touch on some important things and some conversation pieces. But yeah, it was a 3-hour show, right? Game Awards.
Good Lord, 3 long, excruciating hours.
Yeah, it was a very long show. Unfortunately, I know that both Stan and Eric had to sit through they actually sat through the whole thing. I had some stuff that came up, and you know, I just didn't have a lot of time, so I sat through an hour and a half of it, and that was just I tapped out. I was like, I need to get further into Cyberpunk so I can give some impressions. But so I'm not going to be as up to date on some of the announcements as you all, but that's fine. We got 2 out of 3 people here that do. But the first biggest one we probably should address is Sephiroth, right? Coming to Smash.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, I don't even play Smash Brothers, but when I saw that trailer, I like, dude, I kind of wanted to buy Smash Brothers because That was cool, man. I really thought that was really cool.
I like this meme that's going around. It's like a picture of Cloud, and he's like, "My God, can I be in one game when you're not here?" But it looks amazing though. His move set is pretty awesome looking. A lot of what you see is from his other games he's been in, like Dissidia. But he does have some key signature moves if you watch it. There was a part of the footage where Zelda is on the ground, and like they're making her to like represent like Eris in the FF7, and Sephiroth has a down A move where he's coming from the sky and stabbing from behind, like like in the game. Yeah, it's a reference to that.
They did it on a stage too that was also like reminiscent of the area where that happens.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess spoiler alert. I don't know.
Here's the thing though that did kind of split people. It ultimately doesn't matter. It was just for a trailer. The Sephiroth you see is very much the original FF7 Sephiroth. It's not like the Kingdom Hearts one.
People are mad about this,
or the recent Dissidia designs of it. No, not that. It was that they recreated the final fight scene from Advent Children, and Advent Children itself is
he's got the black wing that pops up. Yeah,
is a split thing. Well, they pretty much recreate scenes from the final fight between them. There is like the end where Sephiroth is like, "I'll be more than a memory."
Dude,
Cloud does his Omni Slash.
But when
on him,
Sephiroth turns into like the Genova form, like the second to last boss of Final Fantasy VII, I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah. We're assuming that his ultimate form is he turns into safer Sephiroth.
Yeah.
And probably does his big meteor thing.
And Omni /5, I saw that, right?
How hilarious would it be if like his like when he gets the smash ball and uses his final smash attack, that he uses Supernova, and then all the players like put their GameCube controller down and are just like waiting through that long animation, like from the
oh man, he would immediately
like they recreate it like shot for shot. You're playing Smash Brothers. It's a very fast paced game, and then all of a sudden, Sephiroth used his final smash. Well, here comes the meteor. Just went through Pluto. Next comes Neptune. You know, and you're just like waiting around.
It like labels the planets too, like it does in the game. Like, in case you didn't know, like this is what it is.
And then you miss at the end of it.
Odd lore, by the way. Like why? Like
that would be very funny.
Everything is great though, because I was setting my expectations low because the last one we got was Steve from Minecraft.
That was dumb.
Well, I'm trying to remember who we got before that. That was
Arms character.
The Arms character. So like we kind of got some underwhelming ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like boom, hit you hard with Sephiroth, like one of the greatest villains ever made in video game history. It's like, oh yeah, that'll do. Yeah. But yeah, of course people a little iffy about the Advent Children stuff, but that doesn't mean anything. Sephiroth is just everything you see about him is what you love about him in the original game. I did notice though that I think we'll have to see when he comes out, which is supposed to be this month. So I assume either this week or next week he's coming out. And Cloud may have a special ultimate specifically for Sephiroth where he'll do the Omni Slash.
The guys, I saw it was like level 5 Omni Slash, which is so nostalgic, but I feel that it's not going to be the same if it doesn't kill him in one hit, right?
Like ultimate smashes are
I'm talking about like in lore, like that like they're playing on that moment in the final game, and and so I don't know. It's like that's supposed to kill him in one hit. I don't know.
Well,
I guess now he's prepared. Now he knows.
There's another messed up thing in the trailer too, where you know the scene in Advent Children where he stabs Cloud and he has him like up in the air.
Yeah.
Like they do that in this game with Mario.
Dude, that was like for a moment I was like, did they just stab Mario? Like,
they just killed Mario. Yeah. That was a great.
And then it's like through his like overall strap. I'm like, oh, I was about to say, there's no way they would have done that.
I was like, this isn't. Is this rated M? Like, you have people that died.
Man, and the anticipation was crazy because everyone was like, "Oh man, what character is this?" Like, "Oh no, is it going to be Master Hand? Is Master Hand going to be character because there's so many of them around?" There's like the goddess thing. Then it gets sliced in half, and then you just start hearing the One Wing Angel theme. Man, I got hyped. Like that was a really damn good trailer.
Yeah, it was really good, and that was I'm excited for him to play him, but I was kind of thinking like with how much Sephiroth like I've been exposed to over the years, if this happened like in Super Smash Brothers, like a previous one, like Super Smash Brothers Brawl or something, like when I was younger, I imagine I'd just be like jumping for joy, you know, like.
Yeah.
But I've played like all these Dissidia games, and you know he's made appearances in Kingdom Hearts games, and now Final Fantasy VII remake. You know, I just played recently, so I wonder if that like, or maybe I'm just a jaded FF7 fan. So
We live in a world now that Steve from Minecraft will fight Sephiroth.
yeah,
seems reasonable.
you
Along
know,
with Solid Snake and
you know, kids have it too good these days. Because I remember on the playground being like, "No, dude, Cloud would destroy Link." Right, from Zelda, and then another kid be like, "No, Link is so much stronger than Cloud." But now they can just like
test this out,
resolve it, yeah, in this Smash Brothers games with all these different characters. You can have Solid Snake fight Sonic the Hedgehog, you know, or like it's crazy.
Well, I feel like Cloud would absolutely beat Link, though. I mean, with all the materia. Anyways,
yeah, but Link is very resourceful.
Okay. Anyways,
and we got to figure out which Link too.
Yeah, well, we got to figure out which Cloud.
Did they do some like really dumb death battle thing with them?
Yeah, like all those videos or internet arguments that we used to care about more, like when we were younger. Now people just say, "No, Cloud is better than Link, and meet me online. I'll prove it to you." You know.
Well, we'll settle this.
But yeah. So Sephiroth is supposed to come out. My guess is either this week or next week. They did say December, and Sakurai is going to have a little presentation announcement before it comes out. So we'll probably hear about that soon. Other thing on the Game Award show, I think they did. I think I missed this one, but they showed a little more cinematic of Elden Rings.
I didn't
in the
catch
pre-show.
That. I didn't catch that.
I think I could be wrong about that.
It did win for most anticipated game, so there's quite a bit of hype building up around that.
Well, weird. I thought The Last of Us 2 would have won that category.
Elden Ring will be the next controversy that we get to cover.
But yeah, there were there was a lot. Like after that, there was really far in between anything that was remotely interesting, especially RPG wise. I got really bored through it.
Right, Mass Effect was. I feel like because I didn't anticipate after Mass Effect Andromeda crapped the bed. BioWare basically said that we were not going to revisit Mass Effect for a while, that they're going to give it some time. And I think they expected, you know, some of their other stuff to really take off. I think it was Anthem, right? And that did not do well either. So I think they've realized, well, maybe it's Mass Effect time again, because Anthem was not the thing that really took off like they had anticipated. And apparently this game is supposed to take place in the Milky Way galaxy as opposed to the Andromeda galaxy, which doesn't really mean it'll be a good game, but at least it'll be back with the original three kind of in that area, maybe with some similar well-known sites as opposed to, you know, something brand new. So it might be a little bit easier to get into.
There's high speculation that Shepard's back in the game. And the crew that you're seeing is like the Normandy crew.
Yeah. It wasn't a particularly amazing trailer. It was basically just, hey, it exists. So
yeah, a reveal. Yeah.
I don't anticipate this game coming out for a long time.
Yeah, like that's like a 2022, 2023 release I see already. And we didn't really even get much. We didn't get any gameplay. We just got like a 1 minute cinematic.
It kind of reminded me of like the Supernova Sephiroth animation with just like going through like planets. Kind
Yeah,
of.
that just ends with
Yeah.
uh I forgot the name of their race, but it's like the blue
Oh,
race.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember.
Yeah, and it's like she's picking up a piece of like like Normandy like N7 armor, and then like she looks back at the crew that she's with and goes back. So there's a lot of hints telling you we're going back to the universe in
I
this
got,
Mass Effect.
I gotta be honest, that's a little exciting for me. I don't know why. It doesn't mean like you can still tell a crappy game or make a crappy game in that universe, right? It's not like there's something like associated with quality there, but not in Andromeda. It was just, but I don't know. There's something about it that feels like, okay, well, maybe there's a glimmer of hope of the former glories. So that's cool.
Yeah. Then there was also, speaking of BioWare, they also did show a cinematic for Dragon Age. It doesn't specify Dragon Age 4, but it pretty much is Dragon Age 4.
Yeah.
And it's only showed like an opening cinematic, and weird enough, it actually kind of looks like a JRPG. It's like a colorful like nighttime city and everything, just the way it's designed. It's something not very familiar in terms of Dragon Age itself if you played the previous games. So this one feels like something really different. And we didn't get enough of the trailer to really know what we're getting ourselves into, but it looks like they're trying to get into something big here. Obviously they didn't entail if this is going to be like a live service game or not. So we don't know what these two BioWare games entail.
What if they just call it
But
like Stone Age, right? Like they're transferring ages.
Dragon Age, Stone Age.
Dragon Age Stone Age, okay.
Stone Age. Yeah. Anyways, corny jokes. I'm sorry, I got a lot of them. But
Thanks, Dad.
yeah, it's great. I've got them for days.
But yeah, we don't have enough information to know what these are yet, but just know a lot of the people that made the Mass Effect and Dragon Age games are gone now. So kind of like a Squaresoft to Square Enix effect. Like you're having different teams of people run these games now. So
Mm-hmm.
take with a grain of salt that they may not approach these games in the way that you remember fondly.
I have to
So
I have to say
I guess
that
we'll see.
if you have new people working on a beloved franchise, I would almost rather them do something unique that they want to do as opposed to trying to emulate something, because you're never going to do it as well as somebody that was being passionate about what they were doing, right? You can only emulate it so far. So you might as well do your own flavor on it. So I might eat those words when the game comes out, but
I mean,
we'll
absolutely. I
see.
mean, like the idea you say is solid.
Yeah.
The execution just may be another thing.
Yeah. We'll see. It looks beautiful and I like it. I like the way it looks. So we'll see for sure.
Yeah, I've really got nothing bad to say yet about the game. We need to know more about the game before we can start ripping on
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
like there's rumors of a Dragon Age being a live service game in the past, from the leaked document notes when they're in the process. This could very well change. They may have already made a decision to cut the live service stuff out based on
Anthem.
the bad
Oh, it's just another, yeah.
experiences they had. But then again, it could be EA and they'd be like, just do it better. Or
Yeah, you never
something
know.
like that. But yeah, all we have is cinematic trailers. The only thing BioWare has done is just acknowledge the existence of these two titles, which I guess is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I guess we'll I wish we saw some gameplay, but it is what it is. Besides that, someone would have to refresh my memory, but there really wasn't much else RPG wise. It was a lot of,
Well,
there's
something
some,
pretty big. FF7 Remake won the awards for best score in music and best RPG.
yeah, which
Mhm.
is surprising because Last of Us 2 won every single other category.
That's how it felt at times, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely felt that way. Like Neil Druckmann was just like, I've seriously run out of things to say. It's like, thanks, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'll say like the awards are really irrelevant, especially since they only took up like 10% of the time of the awards. Everything else was like trailers
Yeah, it's not even
and
an award
commercials.
show. It's like commercials with like 10 minutes of awards.
I tell
Yeah.
you, it was
I
even
read
more
all the
awkward than
awards in
ever.
like 30 seconds.
Yeah, it was more awkward than ever because there wasn't an audience, so they were using a fake audience for everything. And then
Mhm.
there was like these weird little sketches, like the one he had like with the Swedish chef, and um,
You
Well,
know,
go ahead.
well, I agree that the no audience, but then they still like tried to make it like there was an audience was kind of awkward. But it did expedite like certain parts of the show because before they would be like, and the winner is, you know, this whatever indie game, won best indie game. And then like the team has to like stand up out of the crowd and like make their way up to the stage. They start giving their speech and then they start playing the music because they're taking too long. So they got to cut them off and kind of shoo them off the stage.
yeah,
Like you avoided all of those kind of like production
So
issues.
all
it
you
was a
had to
cleaner
do
show.
was all you had to do was click on their Zoom window this time
Yes, yeah.
You're like,
and click it off when
okay.
you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
All
then
of
they
them,
could say like,
every
"Oh, thank you."
single person was on Zoom except Jeff Keighley and like a few other select people, but besides
Mhm.
that, every single person was on Zoom.
You know
Yeah.
what I like
It was so
really
weird.
really missed this time is last time it was funny. They had this microphone that was on the stage and it only came up to like your waist, and it was a
Oh
really
yeah.
like sensitive microphone so you could like stand up like at full length and talk, but they didn't tell anybody that. So if you remember, everyone that came out to talk, they would like kneel over the microphone and like be bending over while they're talking. And I
Yeah.
was just every time I would just laugh because it looked ridiculous. Like people like, oh my god, people are probably like wondering why did they put such a short mic out there. Um,
And
so
and they had some
we didn't get that this
other
time, but
they had some other presentation things. They did have an orchestra for to play famous tunes from the Mario series for the 35th anniversary. Guess how long it was? One
Uh,
essentially one it was essentially 1 to 2 minutes.
that's yeah,
The thing.
that's kind of
And they get the a guy from Pearl Jam to do the song from The Last of Us 2,
was that the words they put on
which
there? Guy
it
from
may have
Pearl
been
Jam.
shorter, but it really felt like 5 minutes at least.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, it felt so dragged on.
For for the orchestra though, they did use them again at the end of the show for like the big medley of music for all the like game of the year nominees, which is usually one of the better parts of the show. But it is kind of diminished by the fact that it wasn't like a live orchestra like playing in a amphitheater kind of setting.
Yeah,
It was pre-recorded.
and we were joking about Last of Us 2 before, but seriously, almost every category was won by Last of Us 2, to the point that it created controversy in itself because how the awards work. First off, like I said, the awards are not relevant. Since they have a game of the year doesn't mean it's your game of the year. Your game of the year is whatever you want it to be. Saying that, how they work is that 10% of the vote goes to the people who vote online, and the rest are critics from different like sites and uh like higher end critics from gaming websites,
Yeah.
and they decide ultimately what game wins certain categories. And more times than not, Last of Us 2 kept winning major categories. Like they won like best audio design, um I
well,
think like best gameplay,
they won a lot,
best
yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Accessibility was one that they won, which I think they deserved to. That game did a lot for
Yeah.
accessibility.
Yeah. So, like Eric, I think you bring up a good point that, hey, this is not necessarily, this doesn't mean anything because we all know that, perhaps Last of Us 2 could have won a few less awards, and maybe some other games could have won some more awards, right? I mean, Ghost of Tsushima won Best Art Direction, but that game easily could have won some other areas. I mean, the soundtrack was great. I think, honestly, that was one of the best games I've played this year, Ghost of Tsushima. So, I mean, I'm surprised that didn't win some more awards, but
it won the fan vote. So the
Yeah.
fans' choice, like the only award that was completely determined by the fans, Ghost of Tsushima won, but then didn't win very many other awards.
I think that means more than anything because, look, if you like Last of Us 2 or not is not so much the point I'm trying to make right now. The point I am making is that the game was very controversial. It's very split among people. It was a love it or hate it type of game, very much for different reasons. And it winning a Game of the Year award and so many other awards makes it feel like there's a huge disconnect between the critics and the players. Because if the players had more of a say in who wins the game or who wins the award, Last of Us 2 would have definitely not won as many as it would have. I think the other games on there, like Hades, Ghost of Tsushima, FF7 Remake, I think one of these games would have like beaten Last of Us 2 by a mile.
I think that's a good point that there's like a disconnect between what like a game critic and like what most players like value, I guess, as their game of the year.
Yeah, but they don't want Fortnite to win everything every time.
Right, yeah.
And like Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Last of Us 2 was the Fortnite this year, for sure.
As far as like winning everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, but I think from a critic perspective, like these people just have to like play game after game after game, right? All year, and they're just like pumping out reviews. So I think probably in the back of their mind, they're like, show me something first, like spectacular, like high quality, right? And it's like,
something
okay,
surprising.
yeah, like Last of Us 2 definitely checks that box in terms of presentation and like being a well-made game in general. But then they want to say like, show me something I haven't seen before, right? Or show me something I didn't expect because I've reviewed 20 games this year, and like I want to be surprised. I want to see something that I didn't think could work that like works, or something. I want to see like innovation, I guess. And Last of Us 2 made a lot of bold choices that, like Eric mentioned, split the fans, right? You were either on board with those decisions they made story-wise or you weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of critics just put value in the fact that they had the guts to do that at all, right? And that probably a lot of critics are like, I didn't like the choices they made, but I respect the fact that they made those risks. They took those risks in the story, and no other games I played this year did that. They were more play it safe. And so that might be like elevate the game in their mind.
That was a similar thing that everyone said in their reviews, because as you saw, Last of Us 2 got high reviews from critics and low score from players. And it isn't to say at all that Last of Us 2 doesn't deserve anything. Like you said, like I saw everything it does in its accessibility, and that is extremely impressive that they do all that. So like something like that is absolutely deserving. I'm not going to go argue any other category. What I feel like is when you put it more on the corporate side to decide what what wins like game of the year on this, like if you take it seriously. Like no one's losing sleep over who won game of the year. Maybe some people, but I'm speaking purely on the principle level. Like how many years will you go into this game award where it feels more like a corporate sellout type of show than actually something that players and people online genuinely contribute to.
Well, I think the show should be an hour long, right? I think the endless amounts of commercials and just, I mean, the announcements are fun, so I think those should be in there. But I it just feels like it's made for money to make money, as opposed to being what you're talking about, Eric, of being about the fans and what they enjoy. I don't necessarily have a problem with critics being involved in the nomination and voting process, because they do want some way to safeguard from just, you know,
Call of Duty
mobile
winning,
games
right?
winning. Yeah, every time. Like, just, oh, great, best soundtrack. And it's like, it's got like a Guns N' Roses soundtrack or something. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, that's a good soundtrack, but that's not the same thing. That's not what they mean. So I do think that, like, there's a case to be made that having that involved is important. I'm not sure how it's weighed, though, because it is an interesting point to bring up that Ghost of Tsushima won the overall favorite vote, but it didn't win any other category except best art direction. That makes me think that they're taking the critic vote more, they're weighing that more heavily, as opposed to it being more of a 50-50 type of thing, because otherwise.
Oh, they did say it's 10% player and 90%.
Okay, I didn't read
judges.
that, so that makes a lot of sense then, because I think it should be maybe at least 60-40 or something like that, maybe
50-50. I say
that's fair.
Yeah, like Ghost of Tsushima is an excellent game, but I bet there's a lot of critics who played the game and were like, well, this is an excellent open world action RPG game, of which I've played 4 other just this year that just aren't as good, right? But then they played Last of Us 2,
But
and
they
it was
felt like the
whoa.
art direction was what was excellent about, like,
Yeah, and then they played a game like Last of Us 2 that was like took them on twists and turns that they didn't expect, and thought like this is higher art, like in their mind,
Well, and
deserving of more praise, and so that's why they elevated that game.
yeah. Well,
So
guys, we are an RPG podcast, right? So let me comment real quick, and I'm gonna tie this into the role playing, winning with Final Fantasy VII Remake, and say that, that makes a lot of sense with them wanting something that they feel is new or unexpected, because 7 Remake does provide that. Not to say that, if you enjoyed it, you're wrong or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that, but that would meet that criteria of what they want. But I thought it was interesting that the nominations for this year for role playing was 7 Remake, Genshin Impact, which is a free to play game, but very popular, Persona 5 Royal, meaning a game that already came out, it's just an updated version, Wasteland 3, and Yakuza Like a Dragon. I thought that those nominations were interesting, but Demon Souls wasn't on there, which I thought was very interesting because that got a lot of critical praise. I thought that
I think Demon Soul missed the mark.
Yeah, but wasn't Miles Morales
2020.
nominated for something?
That is true.
It was, yeah.
And it launched
and
on
they
the
came out
same
around
day.
the same time. Yeah.
So I thought that was weird. I thought if you're gonna have Persona 5 Royal, why wouldn't you have Xenoblade Chronicles?
Did we have any other major RPGs?
Yeah,
this year.
I mean,
my memory's getting fuzzy already.
Look, if you're gonna have Persona 5 Royal, I don't like. I think that Xenoblade Chronicles could have been on there. I don't see why not. I mean, you had 7 Remake. I thought it was funny that people were mad that apparently 7 Remake couldn't be Game of the Year because it was a remake, right?
Well, it was nominated.
Oh, was it? Okay.
It was,
I don't
know.
Yeah.
Which kind of made the...
There was discussion online, on Twitter, a lot of it, of people saying that 7 Remake was not going to be nominated because it was a remake. And then I saw a lot of people that were previously claiming that it was a very faithful remake, now claiming that it was not a remake, and therefore
it's a sequel. And
it
qualifies.
That's what I was about to say. It's like it's spoilers. It's technically not a remake in a sense.
That's just like,
well,
we all got Nomura.
It winning RPG of the year was kind of a foregone conclusion because of all those other games nominated for RPG of the year. None of them were nominated for Game of the Year, and FF7 Remake was. So it's like, doesn't it have to win RPG of the year? if it's the only RPG on that list
that was
nominated
nominated
for Game of the Year, like,
that's true.
yes, it does. And sure enough, it did. So
I don't know. I just, yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I just thought it was interesting of the selections that they had, and that Demon Souls didn't have any presence, and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which had a lot of content added onto it, was not on there, but they felt okay with Persona 5 Royal. So I know some people would argue that Persona 5 Royal, there's a lot of conversation around that, so maybe that's why, but I still think that's weird that, you know, you have Genshin Impact, which I enjoyed, and Persona 5 Royal, but you don't have Demon Souls.
I'll defend Persona 5 Royal a little bit. In the case of Xenoblade,
It's the same game.
Xenoblade is it's still a very good game. Still my favorite JRPG of that generation. Ultimately, though, they only added a like a few hour epilogue.
It's 12 hours, 12 to 15 hours.
Redid the UI, but it was still ultimately the same game that was better looking. Persona 5 Royal did add a ton of new content. It did revise a whole lot of things to the battle system, to the
Eric,
point that it is
That's the same game.
that it is significantly improved upon its previous game, to the point that it like
so if I watch the original version of Persona 5 on YouTube, it will not spoil Persona 5 Royal for me.
I mean, it won't spoil the additional stuff.
It's the same game. They've added a lot of content, but it's the same game. I feel what you're saying, that they've added, it's the quantity of content. And I'm sure that some people are going to comment now, like, you don't understand. Like I do. It's a lot of content. I like Persona 5 Royal. I just think that was weird to me.
Well, speaking of like a remastered game, I believe Mortal Kombat has like a definitive edition, the Mortal Kombat 11, and it won Best Fighting Game, even though there were like other fighting games that just came out this year. It was nominated for Best Fighting Game, and it won. So
I guess Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 won Best
Sports Game.
Yeah. Also.
Yeah. So I don't see why, if they can be nominated and win, I don't see how they could justify not even including Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition.
That's the point. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be. It should have been at least included, unless they thought all those games they nominated were more deserving, I guess.
But I can't imagine
maybe they should have
that it didn't get enough votes.
Maybe they should just have a best remaster remake category, since there's so many a year now. You could really put like there's always at least 5 or more remakes or remasters that come out every year. That's now.
The thing. Now
might as well make it its own category.
They just take like an iconic game and then like they remake it or remaster it, and then they just add enough content on there to have it. Like, I don't know. I guess it doesn't really. I guess all that happens is now that 7 Remake can put one best RPG on the cover, and you know, and eventually when it comes to PC, that'll be on every Steam review. Best RPG voted by, you know, the Game Awards 2020. Yeah. And that'll be
feather in the cap.
Yeah. So
I mean, yeah, we've had our criticisms of FF7R for sure, but I still think it has a lot of positive qualities that it definitely does.
Well, from the
awards,
list of games that came out this year, I would have been shocked if it wasn't nominated for best RPG. I mean, because we didn't have a huge list of RPGs that were nominated, so I'm not hating on it winning by any means, but I am curious if they put Demon Souls on there for PS5, what would have happened? Because I think a lot of people haven't played that, but there was just a lot of hype around that game too. So, and a lot of people have already played it in the past. So I think, I don't know, it'd have been interesting.
Yeah.
So
it should be nominated next year if it wasn't included. So
is that how it works? I don't know how it works.
Well, if it missed the cutoff, like.
So Cyberpunk is available for next year.
Cyberpunk is available for next year. Yeah.
Now Miles Morales is on PS4 also, right? I don't think
did they exclude next gen. Well, there's like 3 next gen games, so it's hard because I don't think Godfall or whatever is going to be on there, right? Or Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That was that backwards gen also? Because I've only heard about the next gen version.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe I can't think of any next gen exclusive games that were even at the show.
Why would that matter? It's a freaking
I
game.
don't know. Maybe they just decided
They put a free
push
to
it
play
for
game
next
on
year.
there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows?
They could have had like Candy Crush one year. I mean, it would have been great. So is what else? Anything else with the Game Awards that we want to touch on and comment on? I mean,
I think largely it's good that they exist because it's a nice event to kind of get new trailers and premieres and at least give some credit to the people who are putting in a lot of hours and making these games all year, you know.
Yeah.
Give them their moment in the spotlight, even if it is full of advertisements and other unnecessary distractions. But it's a good event. It can always be improved, but then yeah, like Eric was saying, don't put too much stock in like, oh, like the game you wanted to win didn't win, because at the end of the day, that doesn't matter as much as just having gratitude for the people who are working on the games,
or
it's more for them.
Or
you know?
if a game that you liked did win, that doesn't mean it's actually a good game.
That's, I guess, yeah.
No,
and that doesn't mean you should rub it in other people's face. Yeah,
it's like, oh yeah, you didn't like it. Well, game of the year, confirmed. You know, it's just like, well, maybe not.
I like Jeff Keighley and all, and he seems like a guy who's very passionate about getting this stuff together and trying to make a good show and everything. And I'm sure he sometimes probably has to make decisions that he may not want to, for the sake of like making the corporate sponsors
so much
who help
money off this crap. He doesn't care.
Yeah, but I guess I can't really say much what it could do to improve the thing, because I always take these shows with like a level of cringe already, because that's kind of just what it is. There's no real escape from the cringe in a sense.
Well, it's just nice to have something else to talk about, you know, that's not political or just some massive controversy with a game like Cyberpunk, right?
Yeah.
They just have something to kind of like talk about with people that's not like the stakes are not so high where we can't walk away with our differences. I mean, obviously that's not going to happen on Twitter. You know, you're still going to have death threats and everything like that. But it's just nice to have something like not important to kind of talk about where we can just walk away and disagree, you know.
And we do kind of get like a second E3, you know,
which might be the only E3 movie.
And regardless of only a few announcements being worthwhile, to me personally, someone may have liked that zombie co-op shooter that we get every year. There's people there into that, so that's whatever. But you know, I'm glad something like this exists. You know, I think you should at least have something like this once every 6 months. I'm sure developers always have a lot of stuff they want to show every 6 months, I'm sure. So there is that. So I do appreciate it in some aspects, and in some others I cringe hard.
Agreed.
Yeah. For me, if they were going to try and improve the show, the first thing would be fewer advertisements, but I'm sure that's impossible. I'm sure that's the first thing they would do if they could, right? Is have
if
less.
Jeff Keighley plans on paying out of his own pocket, less advertisement.
Yeah, but then other than that, just have more of a focus on the developers and have more like I guess pre-recorded footage or interviews with them, because a lot of these, I mean, they do have interviews with the developers. This year it was over Zoom or Skype, basically, you know, so it wasn't quite as good in that respect. But there's a lot of awards they just kind of skim over, and they're like, oh, best RPG was Final Fantasy VII Remake, and best fighting game was Mortal Kombat, and best, you know, and it's just like they run through like 6 awards in like 2 minutes, you know, and then.
But it's called the Game Awards.
Yeah, but sometimes the awards, and the whole point, which is to kind of honor the people who put in a ton of work to make those games,
yeah.
gets kind of pushed to the side for a musical performance or
Right.
an advertisement or a new trailer of a new game, which you got to have those, but
Yeah, there was a
find a
lot
better balance
of
between those things.
awards for like particular roles, like best director of a game or best artist,
Yeah.
concept artist for a game. I think you're right that I think it would be greatly improved if we focused on the people
hmm
as much as we do the games themselves. Because like the Oscars, they usually they do like best movie, of course, but they also reward like particular actors for their particular performances in a movie, even
Yeah.
if that movie doesn't win the Oscar. Like Leonardo DiCaprio wins the Oscar for such and such. So maybe like I don't know. Just use it for example. It's like Tetsuya Nomura wins character designer for Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
Like I would like to see more of that for sure.
hmm
Instead, they'll probably make some changes like most effed up game at launch, or just something to get like people really jazzed up.
Most improved game,
It
right?
was No Man's Sky, right? Didn't that
It
win something?
it won best ongoing game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Best game to watch on YouTube.
Dude, I'm thinking about buying that game. I kind of want to try it out now. But anyways, that's a tangent. So yeah, Game Awards. We survived another year. No Green Day this year, unfortunately. I didn't.
Just get Pearl Jam on the guitar.
Pearl
Yeah.
Jam instead, yeah.
So there's that. But anyways, so pretty cool. Forgot to give a quick shout out to our media partner, rpgfan.com. Make sure you go check them out. They allow us to share our content on their website, and they occasionally give me some game codes to record some footage for them so they can do their video reviews on their YouTube page. But they've been doing game reviews since the late 90s. They've got a lot of stuff going on their website. They're doing all sorts of features and, like I said, reviews regularly. And they have other podcasts on there as well. Multiple other RPG podcasts. Make sure you go check them out. rpgfan.com. And to keep everyone in the loop with our own show, next week we will be talking about Super Mario RPG. Full episode devoted to Super Mario RPG. So hopefully you all are a Super Mario RPG fan and you all are looking forward to it. So keep that in mind. If you have anything that you want to make sure that we talk about, join our Discord and let us know. There'll be a link in the description. But we will catch you all next week. Take it easy, guys.
Take care.
See you next time.